here we go. All right, it's going. Does anyone want to start with the first one, I guess?
I can start us off. So, the first question said, review the event in the 2-year conflict. What were unethical HR practices that took place? I think like the administrator not really like taking any action when the like the what was it called, the officer, the nursing officer, or the what was the other nurse? There was a nursing officer and a compliance officer and a quality assurance nurse. I think when they took action to like go to him and be like, hey, this is what's happening, or when they went to the board, they got shut down a lot of times. And then the administrator said, hey, since he was friends with the physician, he's like, you guys can't be doing any type of reporting unless you talk to your physician first. I thought that was very unethical because, it shouldn't be up to the physician. It should be up to the whole healthcare professional team to like come up with what is being like what should be done and what shouldn't. Like I think that when the physician was performing surgery, when he's not even like really a surgeon, he's just performing that at that like hospital, was very out of pocket. And I think having the people in the administrative positions like not taking any type of action or putting any consequences towards the police, like towards that physician, and just kind of like overseeing it, like was very unethical of them. I don't know if you guys have anything to add to that or your own.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of thought the same thing, like, especially because, like, if I remember correctly, the manager was new, right? So
Yeah.
he just kind of dismissed the nurses and their concerns instead of like listening to them and taking it seriously. Like you said, he was just like, oh, well, sorry, you can't do anything until you talk to the physician or something, which I think is kind of dumb.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to them, they're probably just going to be like, well, this is how I do it, or this is my way, or blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And then instead of taking upon him to like investigate these actions and like do something about them, he was just kind of like, oh, well, make a waiver for the patients and email the physician about your concerns and stuff. And I'm just like, that's not really the way you're supposed to do it, especially if you're like the manager in charge.
Yeah.
I also think that I agree with all of those. And also I think the administration board was also unethical because, all of these doctors came to the board and one member interrupted them and shut them down immediately and didn't want to hear what they have to say. And so I think that's also unethical, especially a board that is supposed to, oversee and protect patients. Like, I think their job was for sure unethical.
I mean, not unethical, but like I just don't like how at the end when it is explaining what happened, it said the administrator resigned from the hospital, was charged with and pled guilty to a misdemeanor of abuse in an official capacity and turned over evidence against the sheriff. I just think like the administrator got like the least harsh sentence. I think the sheriff got the most harsh sentence, even though like it should have been the physician and the administrator when they were like, like I understand the sheriff, it was like none of his business to get involved, but like things were happening for like years on, and the administrator and the physician were just having each other's back, and the administrator, all he got was like pretty much a slap on the wrist, and he got to resign, compared to like the physician getting fired, the sheriff got fired, physician lost his medical license, all they got fined, like he just got a misdemeanor. Like it was kind of,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm surprised that even happened to the physician, considering like, he was like friends with the administrator. I'm pretty sure that's what it said. Like the new administrator and the physician were like best friends or whatever. And I'm just like, So that's also like really unethical that like, yeah, the physician's my friend, so I'm not going to take like any actions, even though there's all these concerns and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Should we? Yeah.
Okay.
Do you guys want to start?
I'll read it. So it says, if you work in HR at the hospital, what were your ethical obligations to prevent these unethical practices? So consider the examples. So I basically just said if I was like HR, I would have like listened to the nurses, talk to the physician, see what's going on, like do a proper investigation to see what I can come up with and like see what I find personally. Maybe take upon like what the nurses have found, what they've discovered, and then go from there to do like I don't know. It was just like lacking a proper investigation, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I would do similar things, more investigation, because I mean, the administrator didn't do any type of investigation, like, definitely do any type of more investigation, like you know, because I mean, just what the nurses say, like, may not always be true. There's always been that stigma that nurses and physicians don't get along, and blah blah blah, and how physicians are mean to nurses. So like, for all, like, the administrator could have known, the nurses could have just been saying stuff, but like, that's why it's his responsibility, or in this case, if I was administrator, it's my responsibility to, like, you know take action and consider both sides and see what is actually happening in the organization, like, um take responsibility to, like, these are your workers, that you like, allowed to work in this field as well, and you have to look over. And so, just the, like, ethical standards of justice, and making sure, like, like, that non malfeasance, to, like, make sure that no harm is being done, and that's like one, like, that's the definition for that. So, like, I mean, that's something you should make sure, especially in a healthcare organization, that no harm shall be done within there, and just take responsibility for your patients and employees. Like, you could also, like, not just, like, interview your, like, employees. You could, like, always go to your patients and be like, hey, talk to them, see how they feel, like, because I know the physician was also, like, prescribing them medications that they didn't even need to take, like thyroid medications, and, like, medications that were benefiting him, because they were, like, from his website, or his, like, his own, like, type of medications that were made. And yeah, I mean, I would really just, like you said, take more to, like, look into, like, what's happening within your organization. That way you can take action on what, like, what is justified, that what should be, like, going on.
I agree. I also think, yeah, investigation. They lacked the investigation. They also lacked, like you said, just caring for basic patient and
Yeah.
employee safety. I think if I was in HR, I would also go around and ask, like, not just the physician and the nurses that were experiencing this, but like everyone that was involved in the team, and see like everyone's perspective in
Yeah.
the situation, just to see, the bigger picture. And maybe there was something that, someone had said that was missed, or, something like that. And obviously, consider all ethical principles, like you said, justice, autonomy, and just basically caring for the safety of
Yeah.
the employees, because that's your job, and also the patients that they serve. So
That kind of made me think, like, I think you said it earlier, where like the prescriptions or the drugs that he was providing were from like his own website, own clinic or whatever. I don't know if any of you guys are like in that IPE insurance class. But we were talking about, no, oh, just me.
I don't think so. Yeah.
It's gotten pretty hard. But we were talking about in that class, like there was a section in the book about like how unethical for physicians to use their own like practice or own supply of drugs and stuff like that for patients, because they benefit from it and stuff like that. And so like health insurance always has to like be on top of that, especially when they're like prescribing patients like their own type of drugs that they sell or something like that, or referring them to their own clinic. And so that almost kind of makes me wonder, like, where's insurance on top of all of this,
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that is true.
Sounds-
Anyways, that was my
Okay.
little bring in from some different class.
Yeah,
No,
I mean, that makes
hey,
sense. Yeah, where
yeah,
does, insurance come into play? Because
Yeah.
that's kind of important.
that was a
Okay,
good.
are we good to move on to number 3?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. Number 3, are you concerned by the administrator's actions or lack of that led up to the nurses leaving and the 2 nurses getting fired? Why or why not? Yes. Obviously, because the administrator, like I said previously, didn't care to listen or understand to what they had to say about their issue.
hmm
Um, and so I'd say like definitely lack of their actions led to the nurses being fired and one of them leaving.
yeah,
And I mean, obviously it's a concern because the administrator is supposed to protect the nurses, and in this circumstance, the administrator didn't did a very good job of, protecting them and making sure that they were being safe to their patients and to other professionals. And so, yes, that was my opinion.
yeah. I totally agree with that, and I was concerned, yeah, because yeah, there was no action being taken by the administrator, at least no like rightful actions. Like he was just kind of agreeing and seeing the physician side of the story, and like because it's his friend, and I think that's just a bad way to do your job. Like you can't just always listen to your friends, and I just found it. I was concerned because like I want to go into nursing after I graduate this fall. So I just kind of like, oh my god, like to see that these like people in the administrative positions can like just like like not even care what you have to say sometimes. And then also like towards the last sentence it said they took more action, like the administrator, the physician, and the sheriff, and they like they found stuff, and then they just put a copy of the complaint letter was found on the computer used by the quality assurance nurse. Both nurses were fired, arrested, then indicted for misuse of official information, which carried a $10,000 fine. Even though the charges were dropped, as a nurse, that's very concerning because, like, wow, like, you guys really all went against them, even though they were just trying to do what was right. You're gonna fire them and try to take legal action, even though at the end of the day, you should have known you were gonna lose. Like, they weren't like trying to do anything that was wrong, and they've gone to you for countless times, and so and even the board of directors. So it's kind of like I just hope like we put people in the administrative positions, like in the board of directors positions, like we put the right people there who have a right ethical mind and can make the right choices and take action when needed.
Yeah, I agree with all that. And then like I also think about like, so obviously the answer yes, and like what does that really say about the hospital? Because obviously like if the stories in our textbook it had to be out in the news and stuff, and so like
hmm
what is that gonna tell like other healthcare providers who like, oh, I need a job but I'm not gonna work at this hospital because look at how the management like treats their nurses, or they could possibly even treat other healthcare providers like that, not just the nurses. And then like when patients see this, like what are they going to think about the hospital? Like if the management isn't having like the nurses back to keep like the patient safe, then that means they're just not keeping any patient safe, if that makes any sense.
No,
Yeah,
yeah, no, I
yeah, I
totally agree with that.
agree.
As a
Yeah, the hospital's reputation is definitely on the line.
Yeah, and as a patient, like as me, if I was a patient, yeah, I'd be pretty like if I read this, like I wouldn't want to go there. Like I don't know, just because like you're having a physician, like not all physicians should be able to perform surgery unless you're kind of going into that type of field. And like he was performing surgeries, it says it in the story, and like that, and that hospital didn't even offer any type of surgical assistance. So it's just kind of like it's like so like out of like it's so weird. I wouldn't go somewhere like it's
Right.
like me going It's like me going to like Taco Bell and they're like, yeah, we're serving burgers now. Like, I'm like, I don't know. Like,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, way different. But like, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's insane. Like, how are they gonna let that slip? Like surgery, like that's a big thing, you know. People can like easily die, like just like by blood loss, maybe doing wrong site surgery, anything, you know. This guy wasn't licensed to do that type of surgery. And I know his license, I remember I read he had like some of his license didn't even like allow him to do certain things that he was already doing besides the surgery. So like he was just like completely out of pocket just because he had friends in the administrative position.
Right. And he was also like giving out medications to patients who don't actually need this type of medication, and just basically
Yeah.
because like they were from his like website or his, I don't know, they were like his medication, and so he benefited from them. So like you
Yeah.
said, like if I was a patient, I'm like I wouldn't go to that hospital just because like
Yeah.
they don't do anything about their physician who's gone rogue, and they treat their nurses bad.
Yeah.
So how they're going to treat their patients.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, totally agree.
All right. Anything else to add, anyone?
I don't think so. I think
No.
got-
All right, I'm gonna stop the
Yeah.
recording.